الحمد لله الذي له السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله العليم الكريم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين وقال رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم المرء على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالد صدق الله العظيم. Respectful ulama and honorable friends, we are very fortunate to be gathered here, and we show appreciation to Hazrat Maulana Idris Sahib Damkatuhu, who has enabled us to be here together. And one of the purposes for us being gathered here is, as Jalaluddin Rumi Rahmatullahi gives an example, that if in a room there is one bulb, and that bulb is given light. For example, in this masjid, in this area, we have 20 tubes. You can count it afterwards. If only one is on in one corner, another at the back, somewhere on the left, right, the light and the rays from it will be limited to that area alone. If you have all 20 on, you won't find any dark patches anywhere at all, because the light from one tube to the other interlocks, and it mixes in, and it becomes one radiant place. In the same way, if we all on our own, then whatever little nur there may be in the heart of a believer, it will be limited to himself. And when the ashiqeen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala get together, then the whole place becomes radiant, and each person's nur becomes interlocked with one another. दीवानों की गुजर दीवानों से अच्छी गुजरती है, जीने के लिए चाहता हूँ ऐसी जगह, जीता हो कोई दर्द बड़ा दिल दिए हुए. Where there is one ashik, it is enjoyable. Where there is an entire group of people who have love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it makes that union a lot enjoyable. मेखाने में मेकश आते नहीं, मेखाने में बुलाए जाते हैं, अस खुद दीवाने बनते नहीं, दीवाना बनाए जाते हैं. A person who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make him his, he won't just come himself to the Sahabat in the gathering of the awliya, but it's case of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will draw them and bring them there. And at this moment we find that us gathered here where the mashayikh are gathered, that same place, although there may not be a name and title, that same very place becomes a khanqa. Ahle dil ke dil se nikle bas akhtar yahi hai asli khanqa. That where the ahle dil are gathered, and when we do the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we take the name Allah, the that comes out from the heart of the Ahle Dil, that place then becomes a khanqa. So we are, my friends, here gathered for this purpose, so that we can benefit one another with regards to our ruhani. And also continue and carry on from the previous discourses that you've just heard. My dear friends, in order for us to be able to rectify our hearts, and in order for us to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the heart needs to be rectified. And there are ways, people will prescribe various manners in which a person can make islah of his. But there is one method, my dear friends, that is unanimous. Without this, it is very difficult for a person, or virtually impossible, for a person to make islah of himself. And that is what? That is kunu ma sadiqeen, of being in the company of the righteous. It is for that reason that we have such gatherings, that we have the opportunity to be able to be in the sahabat of the mashayikh, to be in good company. And the fact that on a Saturday or on a Sunday afternoon, where this is a period of time when we know we like to snooze, but we sacrifice our snoozing. So let's hope there's nobody snoozing here when we've made that sacrifice. But this afternoon is one where we like to relax and get some rest and sleep in that. But we've sacrificed that for the sake of being here. And that, my dear friends, whatever period of time we are here, you'll find the benefits of that are great. Jalali Rumi Rahmatullahi mentions that یک زمانہ صحبت با اولیاء بہتر از 100 سالہ طاعت بیدیا. which he mentions are just a short moment, a short period of time in the Sahabat, in the gathering of the Mashayikh, the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the friends of Allah, is better than 100 years of ibadat, and that ibadat which is free from any riya, any show. So not just any ibadat, but 100 years of such ibadat in which there is no show whatsoever. So if there is no riya in our amal, then obviously that ibadah is going to be accepted, guarantee that it is accepted by Allah, meaning 100 years of accepted ibadat. Greater than that is just a short moment sat in the company of the pious people. Now I'm sure many of you hearing this will think that this is extreme, that this is too extreme. How can he make such a statement? Hazrat Mufti Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, he himself thought the same. And he came to his Shaykh Hazrat Hakim Ummatani rahmatullah alayhi. And my dear friends, this is one of the benefits of having a Shaykh, that the likes of Hazrat Mufti Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, Mufti Azam Pakistan, and the examples given to you by Maulana Idris rahmatullah, Hazrat Haji Imdadullah rahmatullah alayhi, Hazrat Qasim Nanotri rahmatullah alayhi. And who did they used to go to? They used to go to Haji Imdadullah rahmatullah alayhi, who only learned Abdul Kafiyah. He wasn't a full alim at all. And somebody even asked Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi, that you are Qutbul Alam, you are such a great alim of his time, Abu Hanifa of his time. What need is there for you to go in the company of Haji Sahib? He's just a Haji Sahib, he's not even an alim. What need is there for you to go in his sunnah? Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi replied and said to him that, look, what I possess and what we have in the form of knowledge is ingredients to a certain delicacy of a certain dish, and how to eat of that. And those who are eating from that delicacy are these people, so we go to them to learn how to eat from these delicacies. Meaning, one is that a person has an entire book, ingredients book, cooking book. He has a book there, and a person knows all the ingredients. And if there are many mothers and sisters listening, there will be those who know many ingredients, and they're writing it down and giving it to others. So they've got knowledge of the products, the ingredients, and how to make that. But then ask them that, have you ever tasted that? Have you ever tasted that? To which they said no. We've got all the knowledge of how to bake that cake, all the ingredients for that cake, but have you actually ate from that cake? No, we have not eaten from that cake. And the other is a person who doesn't know anything about the ingredients of the cake or how to make the cake, but every day that person has cake for breakfast, for lunch, for supper. They're eating cake. Who is better? The one who doesn't have the ingredients but is eating from that cake. And this is what Maulana Shaykh Gangohi rahmatullah said, that we have all the ingredients, but these are those people who are daily eating from that. So we go to them so that we can also eat from that. And these are who Maulana Shaykh Gangohi rahmatullah, like Hakim Ummatani rahmatullah alayhi. And they understand the need that they need to go to such mashayikh for their Islam. Whereas we, who are nowhere anywhere near to them, and we feel that we are free from this, there's no need for us, or no need for our Islam, or for us to go in the sohbat of anybody. So this way Mufti Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, he had an objection that it seems here that the poet has been a bit extreme. That how can this short period of time in the company of the awliya be better than 100 years of ibadat? So he came to his Shaykh, Hazrat Hakim Ummatani rahmatullah alayhi, and said to him, Hazrat, it seems that the poet has done some ghulu here, he's been a bit extreme in this. To which Hazrat Hakim Ummatani rahmatullah alayhi said, the poet, he says what he has said, whereas I say, Yek zamana sahabate ba awliya behtaras, lak sala ta'ate biriya. That the poet has said 100 years of ibadat, I say 1,000 years of ibadat. Hazrat Mufti Shafi rahmatullah alayhi was confused from the beginning. And now he says that you may be even more confused. I couldn't understand and put my head around 100 years of ibadat, and you are mentioning that a short period of time in the company of the awliya is better than 1,000 years of ibadat without any riya in it. I do not understand this. And my dear friends, the mashayikh are not those who just mention things how they want to. They are those, my dear friends, who have ilm of the batin, and they know what they are saying. And that tasawwuf is substantiated and proved with the Quran and Sunnah. For that reason, my dear friends, when we also go to the mashayikh, when we go and we appoint and make somebody our shaykh, very, very important, that we see that person is on deen and shariat. and that tasawwuf, because nowadays Sufism, tasawwuf is Sufism. And the reason why tasawwuf and Sufism is, the reputation has been so tarnished, is because of those who have corrupted tasawwuf. And alhamdulillah, we find that our mashayikh, their tasawwuf was pure and pristine according to what was in the Quran and Sunnah. And this is what we specifically find with that of Hadhrat that whatever is mentioned is all substantiated from Quran and Sunnah. So here Hadhrat gives proof to it as well. He gives proof to it when he says, look, there was a person by the name of Balam bin Ba'ura. And this Balam Ba'ura, I won't go in detail with regards to this incident due to time. Anyhow, he was somebody from the Banu Israel who had done the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 300 years. And he was Mustajabu Da'wah. He had knowledge of the specific name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by which dua is accepted. So it's meaning that he was so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 300 years, and he was mustajabu da'wat, any dua he makes, his dua was accepted. But then, due to a fitna that arose, he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he ended up making dua against Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu salam. And now because of that wrong that he had done, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had stripped him of this position of being mustajabu da'wat. And he lost all that he had acquired and that he had done in 300 years. So Hakim Muhammad mentioned that look, he had done the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 300 years. But the 300 years of ibadah could still not guarantee him Jannat. That could still not guarantee his salvation. But rather in the case of that he was rejected from the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iblis himself was the Usul Malaika, who had done so much ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he then became totally rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence there is no guarantee that our ibadat will acquire salvation for us. But being in the sahabat of the mashayikh, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in the hadith that humul julasa la yashqa jalisuhum. That Ahlullah, they are such people that their gathering is such that it is guaranteed that whoever sits in the gathering of the mashayikh, la yashqa jalisuhum, that they will never remain wretched. Meaning that their fortunes will change. So when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned that their fortunes will change, that is guaranteed. That whoever is in the company of the awliya of the mashayikh, they will not remain on wretchedness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change their condition, that they will become righteous. And when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in this hadith, Ayashka Dalisu, what is shaqa? What is this wretchedness that we talk about? What type of people even change from being in the sahabat of the mashayikh? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, riwayat Ibn Majah, himself clarifies this. When Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that la yadkhulun nara illa shaqiyun, that only a shaqi, a wretched person, will enter into the fire of Jahannam. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala asked Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Mani shaqi, who is a shaqi? Who is such a person?" To which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that ma lam ya'mal lillahi bita'atin, that the one who has never done any ta'at of Allah, obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's never done any obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the same time, وَلَمْ يَتْرُكْ لَهُ بِمَعْصِيَتِهِ, and one who has not even left any single disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a shaqi. So one who has never done any good deed, and one who has not left any bad deed, that is a shaqi, a wretched person. But Nabi Kareem mentioned that even a wretched person changes when he comes into the sohbat of the mashayikh. So here it is guaranteed that his fortunes will definitely change. That is why we are here, my dear friends. That is why it is so important for us to be in the sohbat of the mashayikh. So by us being with them in their company, our fortunes will also change. And it is through them that people like us will also become like them. For that reason we find, my dear friends, Hazrat Masjid Umar rahmatullah alayhi gives a beautiful example. And he gives an example of a train. Although we may not experience that as much here, but in other countries, where you have different classes of compartments in a train. One is the engine itself. And then after that, in the beginning, you may have the first class compartments, the second class, the third class. Here virtually all of them are first class. But in Hindustan, Pakistan, you'll find where you have the different classes, and then you'll have the Chalu Dabba and the rest. So you know if you have experience traveling there. So Masjid Umar rahmatullahi mentions that those at the end of that train, you'll have all the third class and all the old compartments, and they are joined and linked at the end. But at the same time you find that each train, each compartment is interlocked with the one ahead of, in front of it. And because it's been interlocked with the first class and the engine that is carrying the first class, you will find wherever the destination of the first class is, the third class will also reach that destination. If the train is leaving from Leicester to London, it will take along with it the first class, and it will take along and pull along with it the third class as well. And it is for this reason that we attach ourselves with the mashayikh, that knowing that we are the third class ones, but through their barakat, inshallah, they will pull us and drag us along with them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, Shah al-Haq rahmatullah alayhi gives an example of this as well, of being in the company of the mashayikh, where he mentions to us that, look, if you have a friend, and this friend of yours, he has worked very hard, and after working very hard, he's bought a new car. He's bought a new car, but he's worked for it. And after working hard, he's bought a new car. And after buying that new car, what happens is that because you have friendship with him, and because you are friends with him, whenever you need to go somewhere, he says to you, look, I've got a new car now. So don't worry, wherever you need to go, I'll take you with me. If you've got an appointment, let me know, I'll take you there. If there's some program somewhere, I'll take you there. You need a lift, just let me know. So that mentions here that the one who has the car is the one who's made the effort, and by his effort he's got the car. But the one who hasn't made any effort at all, who doesn't have the car, but just because he has friendship with the one who has the car, he also gets to tag along, and he also gets to sit with the person who has the car. In the same way, it is the mashayikh who have made that effort, and they become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are the ones, by being with them, will get tagged along with them to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hadhrat Shah Pulpuri rahmatullah alayhi would mention, चलो दियारे डाल से होके चलते हैं, सुना है कि वहाँ से मुसाफत कम होती है. To which Hadhrat Shah Pulpuri rahmatullah alayhi mentions that let's take the shortcut. You have a field, and one is that around the field you have the actual pavement and the road around the field, and you want to get to the opposite end. One is that we walk all the way around and get there, and the other is where people make their own footpath, where people themselves have walked there and made their own path, right in between. So if you walk right in between, you can get there a lot quicker than the one who's going to go all the way around. In the same way, he mentions that being in the suburb of the mashayikh, this is a shortcut to becoming close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, traversing all the manazil, all the stages of suluk, this is going to take a long while. It's going to be going all the way around. But the shortcut and the easiest way is for us to grab hold of a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by means of him we take the shortcut of becoming close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. मुझे सहल हो गई मंजिले के हवा का रुख भी बदल गया, तेरा हाथ हाथ में आ गया तो चरागे राह भी जल गए. That's, for me, the path of suluk, the manazil, have now become so easy that hawa ka rukh bhi badal gaya, that the direction of the winds has also changed. Where previously the direction was towards the Masjid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but now the direction has now turned towards the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hand of the shaykh has come into us, we become close to a wali of Allah, we have a islah ta'alluq with them. And the benefits of that is what now? That charagir ra, that the lanterns, or the light, previously where the path was totally dark for me, now those same dark paths have now become light enough for me so I can see where I'm going. And this is how, when a person is in the sohbat of the mashayikh, that one is, they will definitely make us like them. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاسْكُونُوا مَا صَادِقِينَ أَيْ خَالِتُوهُمْ لِتَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُمْ, that be with them so much so that you become like them as well. رہو سال شیخ کا اتنا کہ تم بھی ان کی مثل بنو, کبھی کبھار وزٹ کو تو کمپنی نہیں کہتے. That be so much in the company of the mashayikh that you also become just like them. And that is, my dear friends, what happens. And one thing is for sure, and this is what we have learned from our beloved Shaykh Arif Billah Muhammad. My dear friends, the doors of wilayat are still open and they remain open till the day of Qiyamah. Till there remains a believer, the doors of wilayat will always remain open. It is other than we feel that the doors of wilayat are long closed, that today a person cannot become a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also think, and one of the reasons why we do not go in the company of the mashayikh is that we feel that there aren't any mashayikh who we can go to. And we feel there is no longer any Junaid Baghdadi. There is no ITC Bustami, there isn't such personalities that we can go to anymore. But the reality is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kunu wa salikin, as I mentioned, that when Allah is commanding us kunu, that be in the company of the pious, then how can it be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us something and then He doesn't open up the way for us? That He commands us to be in the company of the pious, but there's no pious people to go to. Hence the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to be in the sahabat of the awliya itself is proof that at all times there will be those people who we can go to in order to rectify ourselves, who we can go to so that we can also have this flame of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our hearts. Kareeb jalte hue dil ke saath apna dil kar de, ya lagti nahi lagayi jati hai. There will always be such people around who have this flame of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their heart, who we can go to and also acquire this flame in our hearts. This flame will not extinguish. And Hadhrat Hakim Muadh mentions that when one wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala departs from this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places another one in his position. There will always be such people around, my dear friends. It is just a case of us having that talab and desire, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take us and show us towards those people who we can have our islah. By being in whose company we can also become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though they may not be the Junaid Baghdadis of the time. They may not be the caliber of the mashayikh and the awliya of the past, but they will still do the job for us. On one occasion, a few people going for Hajj came in his company, and as I asked them when they're going, how they're going, and that to which they mentioned that all the mainstream airlines, they were all fully booked. Hence there was a chartered flight that would take them, but it was not a much smaller plane. A much smaller plane. Hazrat just asked them out of curiosity that what's the difference between the plane that you're going to take and the mainstream planes. To which they mentioned nothing. The only difference is that this will take a little longer to reach its destination. This will take a little longer to reach its destination. Upon which the Shah al-Haqsa mentioned, this is exactly the same. One is we have the mashayikh of the time, and one is when the mashayikh are not around. Then you have those people who are their deputies. And if you grab hold of the deputies, they will also take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although maybe a little slower. But you will still reach your destination. If these hadiths say no, because we didn't get a seat, the mainstream aeroplanes, mainstream planes, what's the point going on a smaller plane for? If they think in such a way, they'll remain there and there, they won't be able to go for Hajj. They won't be able to get to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we think the same at difference, we won't be able to get anywhere at all. But they got onto those planes and they eventually reached the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, my dear friends, even though they may not be those mashayikh, but even still, if we make do of the mashayikh around, we will still not just get to the house of Allah, but the one whose the house it is. Will become and will reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that reason, my dear friends, we need to look around us. And by being in their company, you will find how, as Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, that a person's life itself will change. And this is the barakah. This is the blessings of being in the sunnah of the mashayikh. That one is, as was mentioned to us earlier on, all the evil that we have in our hearts, all the wrongs that we have in our heart, when we go in the sunnah of the mashayikh, these things now become open and clear to us. When we are oblivious of these things, when we come in the sunnah of the mashayikh, these things become open for us. We can now see the wrongs within us. We hear the discourses, and we understand the reality of what our heart is. And the most important thing is, my dear friends, even if there is no talk or so, what has we been told is company. A sahabi, you're hearing the word sahabat the whole time. Sahabat means companionship. And a sahabi, my dear friends, is called a sahabi. Why? On what basis? Merely on the companionship of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So a sahabi who's guaranteed Jannah. And this sahabi who becomes a sahabi just because of this companionship with Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the state of Iman. And that is what we talk about, companionship. And this sahabat companionship is what is most important. Even though the mashayikh may not even mention anything to us. On one occasion, Shah Rasulullah rahmatullahi was in Aligarh University and had a few days of talks there. One day in one majlis after Asr, Hazrat just sat there quietly. Throughout the majlis, he just sat there quietly, not saying a single word to the crowd at all. At the end of that majlis he said, "Jisko aaj ki majlis se fayda na hua ho aina kal na aaya." That whoever didn't benefit from today's majlis should not come tomorrow. Meaning to show that the mashayikh, just being in their company itself is so beneficial for us. Reason being is because they are those people that due to their hearts always being attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the special favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are also always descending on them, and those around them also get the benefit of it. Which Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullahi mentions, that they are such, and jalisuhum yandariju jami'an huwa, that they are those jalis, those companions, those people. Whoever comes with them, even those are benefit with that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefits them. And as Hakim al-Tawi rahmatullahi gives an example, that once a person was giving some wind in the form of the fan. Now they didn't have ceiling fans and wall fans in that time. It was a case of the huge basket type, a fan that you'll have where a person would physically either pull the ropes or with the hand give the fan. As Hakim al-Tawi rahmatullahi said to those near him, that at this moment, this person is giving fan and he's giving me some air. But whilst he is giving air to me, those around are also getting the benefit of that wind. They are also getting the benefit of that fan. And this is exactly the same that those walis of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whatever special favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descend upon them, those who just sat with them, they also get a whiff of that. They also come into that just by being in the sohbat of the mashayikh. My dear friends, Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi. And who is Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi? And this is an example for us, my dear friends. Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi, who is he? He is Tariq-e-Sultanat al-Balkh. He is the one who sacrificed the kingdomship of Balkh for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mashaykh mentions, Khula ke ara sultan Balkh par, Khula ke ara sultan Balkh par, Faqiri li de ke takht shahi. Today we all want to be millionaires. We dream of being a millionaire. Who doesn't want to be a millionaire? And we have so much intentions, and we have so much plans, and we have so much that we would like to have. Such a villa, so many cars, and so many this, and so many that. If only I become a millionaire and I do this and that. But other maybe a million might be a bit less now. Our dreams are more than that. So in this way, we all dream to have that. We all dream to have celebrity statuses. We all have dreams of being famous and having name, fame, and material and all these things. Here Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi, he was the king. If you're the king, you've got everything in your disposal. But despite being the king, Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi, one of the nights he sacrificed that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he went off into the jungles of Nishapur. Meaning here, as Hadhrat Awliya mentions, Khula kya Raz Sultan Balkh par. So if we think about it, who in his right mind would give up a kingdomship for the life of poverty? Which means that something else better than kingdomship must have been granted to Ibrahim bin Adham that enabled him to sacrifice a kingdomship to adopt a life of poverty. That what Allah Ta'ala gave him in that life of poverty was a lot better and much more than he had in the life of kingdomship. So the same Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullahi, who made such a sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on one occasion while he was walking somewhere, he saw a youth. And this youth, this youngster, he was unconscious, knocked out. And in that he was in a state of intoxication. There was puke and vomit all over himself. And we see these things usually on a Friday night, Saturday nights, in town centers and that. We see this all the time. People, intoxicated and vomiting and that. So he was in this condition as well, where he was there unconscious and there was vomit all over him. Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi, such a great wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, came and wiped his face, washed him in that. And when he washed him in such a way, this person became overwhelmed. That first of all, it's not just any person, but the great sultan, a great saint of his time. He's doing this khidmat of mine that he's actually washing my face and he's saying to me. He became so overwhelmed by that immediately he took the promise that he's not going to drink again. He made tawbah on the hands of Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi. Immediately he made tawbah on the hands of Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi. The same very night, Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi sees in dream that Allah Ta'ala says to him, that this same very person that you met during the day, I have elevated his ranks and I have put him right on top of the list of the awliya. I put him right on top of the list of the awliya. Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayhi was shocked here, oh Allah. The same person who's there drowning in his own vomit, who I found intoxicated in such a state, and you have now taken him from that state and put him on the state of the ranks of the awliya of yours? What is the reason for that? To which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned to him that أَنْتَ غَسَلْتَ وَجْهَهُ لِأَجْلِي فَغَسَلْتُ قَلْبَهُ لِأَجْلِكَ. That you had washed his face because of me. Because of that I have washed his heart because of you. That because you are so close to me, you are a friend of mine, and because I have so much qadr for you, appreciation of you, and because you washed his face, I have him because of you. For my sake you washed his face, I have washed his heart for your sake. This is what I mentioned, dear friends, by us studying along with the awliya, by being in their sohbat, how our fortunes will also change. And this is exactly what happens, that they make dua for us. And these are such people, my dear friends, who duas are accepted. Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi, another example, a couple of examples and I'll end off, my dear friends. Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi, who was a great all India famous poet, as we'll say, a celebrity. In those times, he was a celebrity. And Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi, he was such a person who used to drink a lot. He drank so much that when he used to come onto the stage, people used to have to help him on and off the stage. Then he was always even intoxicated. But then his thought entered into his heart that, look, enough is enough. Yeah, time should end in our hearts that, look, enough is enough. To which he himself mentions, my dear friends, पीने की तो बेहिसाब पी ली है, पीने की तो बेहिसाब पी ली है, अब है योम हशर का रंग. The पीने की, with regards to drinking, behisab, I have drank so much that is uncountable. I've drinking enough, enjoyed most, enjoyed a lot. But now I've reached a stage wherein now I have fear of the hereafter. This thought entered into his heart. Like many a person, the thought enters into our heart that I need to change my life now. But where do I go now? What is the next step? I want to change my life, but what do I do next to change my life? This is the point where Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi was confused at what do I need to do next. But he was fortunate. Fortunate that somebody had mentioned to him that, look, there is such a person. Go to him. There is such a great saint of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Thana Bhawan. Go to him and you will find what you're looking for. And he was fortunate that he was from those people who went to Hadhrat Hakim al-Thawi Rahmatullahi. Hadhrat Thawi Rahmatullahi, my dear friends, he was one. A lot of people were a bit scared or they'll be hesitant to go to Hadhrat Hakim al-Thawi Rahmatullahi. As we are today, we don't like to go to the Masjid. Why? If we become bad to our Shaykh, then what will happen is, he'll reprimand us. He's going to tell us off. Just way if we go to the doctor, and he sees that there's something wrong with us, the first thing he's going to say to us, do you smoke? Yes, I do. Then he's going to tell you off, stop smoking immediately. So we go to the mashayikh, they're going to tell us off, they're going to reprimand us, and we should appreciate that. That's the way we appreciate a doctor, being frank and being open to us and direct to us. This is what the mashayikh do. They rectify the spiritual illnesses that we have. But there we're afraid, we don't want, especially with the ulama, don't want to go. Now I'm alim fazil. Why should I have had enough of the Darul Uloom and Darul Iqamah, of the gates open, and this pabani, that pabani, now I go to Mashayikh and then even more. I'm free now, Azad, now I'm farid. No. So in this way, there are those who are hesitant to go to Hadhrat Hakim al-Thawi Rahmatullahi. But my dear friends, those who did go, when they came out from there, then the likes of Mufti Shafi Rahmatullahi, Qari Tayyib Rahmatullahi, such great personalities that came out from Khanqa Thana Bhawan. Because they had benefited from the sohbat. So here Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi, he came to Hadhrat Hakim al-Thawi Rahmatullahi, and he just spent a couple of days there. To that extent, what state did he come in? When he came there, he actually made it darkhast to Hadhrat Hakim Rahmatullahi that I drink. So I want ijazat to drink in the Khanqa. I drink and want ijazat to drink in the Khanqa. To which Hazrat said to him, Hazrat didn't kick him out from there. Hazrat said to him, look, Khanqa, this is a public place. This is such a place wherein I cannot permit you to drink here. But what I'll do, I'll make intizam for you, I'll make some alternate residency for you, where you can stay. Once you are there outside the Khanqa, it's up to you and Allah what you do there. So in this way, he came and he spent just a couple of days there. On his departure, he came to Hazrat Thawi Rahmatullahi and said, Hazrat, make dua for me. And he requested 4 duas from Hazrat Thawi Rahmatullahi. One dua, he said, Hazrat, make dua that I stop drinking. The other, make dua that I keep a shari beard. And make dua that I go for Hajj. And fourth, he said, make dua of husn khatimah. Death on iman. So he asked Hazrat Hakim al-Thawi Rahmatullahi, Hazrat, make this dua for me. And at the time of each one he said, Hazrat said, Ameen, Ameen on it. And what had happened is, the same very year when the time of Hajj came, Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi had the opportunity of going for Hajj. Now when he went for Hajj, obviously, on the whole journey to Hajj and Saudi, there you go there, obviously you can't take your liquor with you there. So throughout that journey, he could not drink, so he stopped drinking. And then throughout that journey, it wasn't a case of you leave in the morning and in the evening you're already there in Jeddah. It was a case of taking days and months on sea. In that period of time, with all the other hadiths there, Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi felt it bad to be sitting there and shaving in that. So in such a way, he left that as well. So he went for Hajj, he left drinking, and at the same time, he kept the beard. Now when he returned, my dear friends, Jigar, after all, a celebrity. You know, we had certain celebrities who went for Hajj, and the whole world was wanting to know what happened with them. So here with him as well, they wanted to know that Jigar has gone for Hajj after all. So on his return, all the paparazzi, and all the media was there on the shore, waiting. So when he lands on the ship to get a picture of him and get his tasurat, how was your Hajj and this and that. When he came and when he saw all the hoo-ha outside there, he himself mentioned, because he went differently and he came back differently. He went in such a way that when he returned, people would not recognize who he is. He went clean shaven, he came back looking at the mullah. To which he said himself mentions, "Chalo, dekh ke aate hain tamasha jigar ka, suna hai wo kafir Musalman ho gaya." Suna hai wo kafir Musalman ho gaya. So he himself says that, let's go and see the tamasha, the show of jigar now. That who went as a kafir and now has come back as a believer. So he himself mentions that the barakat of Hazrat Hakim al-Thanwi Rahmatullahi was that those 3 du'as of mine were accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that accepted my difference. When he stopped drinking, he became ill. The doctors had warned him and said to him, "Now look, leaving this drinking the way you have, this is not good for you. Continue drinking for a little. Wean yourself off it." Like we feel as well. Tawbah will make tawbah, but we'll wean ourselves off the sin. I'll make tawbah, but inshallah, after Ramadan I'll stop. So I'll cut down. Cut down on the sinning. Here the doctor said to him as well, cut down on the drinking rather than totally leaving it. Jigar Rahmatullahi asked them, tell me, that if I continue to drink, how longer will I live? The doctor said, well, you have another at least 5-8 years or so. On which Jigar Rahmatullahi himself said that, look, the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've done enough now. I cannot even bear a single moment further in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if it means I leave it totally and I die now, I'm willing to do that and live another 5-10 years in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured him, gave him better health than before, not only physically, but spiritually as well. To which Jigar Muradabadi Rahmatullahi himself mentions that his condition became such, Mera kamal ish was yahi hai Jigar, wo mujh pe chha gaya, main zamane pe chha gaya. That he became such a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One occasion he was studying a tanga, and the person driving the tanga himself was saying this ashar, not knowing that Jigar Muradabadi sat behind him. Jigar Muradabadi says that when these 3 du'as of mine were accepted, I fully yaqeen that the 4th one of Khatima bil Iman will also be accepted. This is what we get by being la yashqa humul jalasa la yashqa jalisuhum. That how a person's fortune changes when a person comes in the Southern Mashayikh. Abdul Hafiz was another poet on this poet. Abdul Hafiz from Jaunpur. He was a poet. And he was one who was also in dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also showed him the path and the door of Khanga Thanabon. And he came there. And when he came to the Khanga, he had kept a small beard on the way. But when he got there and he came into the Khanga, he deliberately shaved his beard. And Hazrat Hamid Abdullah, when he saw him, questioned him, why you had some beard, why did you totally remove it? To which he mentioned that Hazrat, you are Hakim al-Ummat. You are the Tabib of the Ummat, the doctor of the Ummat. And I am the Mariz of the Ummat. So I have shown you what my maraz is. Now make dua for me, Allah Ta'ala cures me from this. Anyhow, he spent some time there with Hazrat Hamid Abdullah, and his condition then totally changed. Then a few years later, Hazrat Shah Abdullah mentions that he was with Hazrat Thanvi in Jaunpur in some jalsa. And when they was there, an elderly person came with a huge beard. And he came to Hazrat Thanvi Abdullah saying, do you recognize who I am? Hazrat could not recognize who he is, and he said, I am the same Hafiz who came and shaved my beard in the Khanka. That now in due time he had a full beard. And his condition, my dear friends, became such that it is mentioned that prior to his death, he was so overwhelmed with the sins that he has done, that the last couple of days of his life he just spent walking from one corner to the other corner of his room, continuously crying and making tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his own that condition of his, he has mentioned in his Diwan of Hafiz, where he puts his condition in some ashar, where he says, मेरे खुल के सियाकारी भी देखो, मेरे खुल के सियाकारी भी देखो, और उनकी शान सतारी भी देखो. गिरा जा रहा हूँ जमीन में, गुनाह का गिराबारी भी देखो, हुआ बैत हफीज अशरफ अली से बाय गफलत ये होशियारी भी देखो. That my condition is such that I have told you so much sins of Allah subhanahu, disobedience I have done, but look at how Allah has concealed it. That the burden of my sins is so much that I am being drowned and sinking in the earth. But he says, despite all of this, by ghaflat, ye hushari bhi dekho, that hua Hafiz, Baid Ashraf Ali se, the fact that the Hafiz became Baid to Ashraf Ali, despite this ghaflat of mine, this one hushari of mine, one intelligent thing that I had done, the benefit of that is that now I have the tawfiq of making tawbah. And it was in that state of crying and remorse, and in tawbah that he passed away. This, my dear friends, is from the benefits of being in the sohbat of the awliya, in the benefits of being in good company, that either we will also become like them, we'll also have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if not the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then at least we'll have the thirst of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My beloved Shaykh Hadhrat who mentions that one of the benefits is what? That pyase ko pani mile, bin pyaso ko piyas. The pyase ko pani mile, bin piyas ko piyas. That those who are thirsty will get water to drink, and those who have nothing at all, by being in the sohbat of the mashayikh, at least they be granted with the thirst of what? Of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the desire of wanting to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear friends, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all this understanding, and also the importance of being in the sohbat of the mashayikh. And as I mentioned to you at the beginning, dear friends, that do not look around and I do not see a Junaid Baghdadi. Do not look around and think that I do not see a Bayezid Bustami. Those who are available to us, make use of them, and that will also be beneficial for us. Once an elderly person became paid to Masjid Rahmatullah alayhi, and Masjid Rahmatullah alayhi was still in his young age at that time, and an elderly person became paid to him, so there are other people who started mocking him, making fun of him, that could you not find an older sheikh? Could you have not found an older sheikh somebody to take bayt? Why do you take bayt to such a young person? To which he mentioned in jawab, and in reply he said, जिसका दर्द दिल पर तासीर हो, खा वो जवान हो वो मेरा पीर है. जिसका दर्द दिल पर तासीर हो, खा वो जवान है वो मेरा पीर है. And this is what we need, my dear friends. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives all the tawfiq. And alhamdulillah, you are very fortunate here itself, that from your servants and from your founder and from those who you have put and made part of your masjid, Hazrat Idris Dawud, he's from those mashayikh that we can make use of. Hazrat Shaykh al-Hadith Ayub Sahib Dawud. These are those mashayikh who have just here gathered with us. And in Leicester, you're spoiled for choice. There are other mashayikh as well who have your munasabat with. Make use of them, go in their company and benefit from them. Allah Ta'ala gives us the tawfiq. And also at the same time, my dear friends, finally, from myself and all asatis, if I can also show appreciation to Hazrat Idris Dawud for inviting us here, for hosting this event, and also for all the people of this masjid who have welcomed us here, fed us very well as well. Allah Ta'ala accept this love and muhabbat of yours. All this love and muhabbat is solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And love for Allah brings about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Allah the reward will make this also means of prosperity, and also make the means of opening up the doors towards your future plans that you have, whatever further needs you have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make those easy for you as well. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم.